My research paper is on the effects of journalistic media and the relationship that media and law enforcement have together. It's a love-hate relationship. I've seen it with my own two eyes. I worked in law enforcement for 7 years and saw how the media needs law enforcement to get the information that they need, and that the law enforcement needs media to maintain and uphold a reputation that the public will respect. Right now there's a lot of controversy going on with law enforcement and how people don't trust them. I think a lot of this stems from the Ferguson, Missouri case where the unarmed black teen was shot by an officer. That case I use a lot as an example in my paper. I use it as an example with how the media portrays law enforcement to abuse their powers in saying that they've become more military than law enforcement. Also how they're racists and just all these bad images that they're portraying law enforcement to be, and how it's affecting the way that people respect law enforcement or don't respect them. Another thing that I'm touching on is the subdued response by media on the death of police officers. When an officer dies, it's not really seems to be like a big deal anymore, and it doesn't even always make national news. If you're lucky, it might make the local news. But when you see these unarmed black teens get shot, it makes the news everywhere. And when they use that title of unarmed black teen, you automatically think that he's an innocent teen, when they don't, add the backstory and of how he just strong-armed a convenience store and then supposedly attacked the officer, which is yet to be determined whether it's true or not. But to have that backstory not added to the original headline just makes it look like the officer's automatically guilty. The media, how they're portraying that the law enforcement is abusing their powers. I use an example from one article in the paper, how Al Jazeera media was at the scene of the protests in Ferguson and said how the officers were just manhandling people and throwing tear gas and abusing them, when in reality they left their cameras rolling, and what happened was the law enforcement told the people to go and to leave, and the people who were peacefully protesting did, and the others who were defying their orders were the ones who saw the tear gas and saw the military style ways that the law enforcement had to handle the situation. So again, they try to make it look like they're some kind of victims, but they're not. They're just twisting what they want to be spread with the media. They also spread it so far to Russia, where Russia is, adding the same headlines from Al Jazeera, and it spreads like wildfire once they try to show the corruption behind law enforcement. Another example is a campus. There was a protest going on where they were protesting. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to reread the article of exactly what it was they were protesting, but it wasn't just students. It was also people who professionally protest and are known for getting arrested for the way that they protest, and how they were told by the university to leave along with the law enforcement, and they just refused to do so. The university asked the police to dismantle their camps and their tent and to get them to leave. Some students left peacefully, others did not, which resulted in them getting pepper sprayed. And this pepper spray got all over YouTube and the news, showing how that law enforcement was picking on the students and abusing their powers yet again, which wasn't even the case. They weren't telling the full story, and even some of the parents were quoted saying, if my child isn't following the rules of law enforcement, I would expect them to be disciplined, and if my child resists arrest, then whatever is to happen to them, it should happen. Some other ones I'd touch on, some other articles, media consumption and public attitudes towards crime and justice. This more or less just goes to how everything that law enforcement does is questioned. Everyone automatically thinks the officers are guilty and they're wrong, and this is kind of why body cameras are coming into play, is really to protect the officers. So many people are, crying, false accusations and saying they were abused, which it does happen, but the body cameras are showing that these people are lying and that they weren't abused, and they just want that media attention. I touch on how media relations, how we need to bridge the gap. a study of police organizations and media relations, police community relations, with specifically with the Black race. That's when they touch on, because so many statistics, especially here in Illinois, there's such a high rate with these Black teens, and so many of these different politicians try to, say why this is happening. We really don't know why. It's either because it's a poor community and that's how these people were raised. Is it the lack of the, father figure in their lives, since the statistics show that the fathers don't stick around? And not having a male figure, having that authority, we don't know why it is, but there is some disconnect between male Blacks and law enforcement and the respect that needs to be there. And that article kind of goes over that and how different cultures respect law enforcement. Working together in a crisis is another one. I myself worked at the NIU shooting in 2008. Northern Illinois University was attacked by a gunman, and on Valentine's Day, and killed, I believe it was 5 students, and then he killed himself. I saw with my own 2 eyes how the media is vultures, and they just don't give up. They're relentless until they get what they want. We had people calling from all across the world trying to hound us for this information, and I've seen it on both sides. I've seen the side where I know what's going on and I can't tell people, but now that I'm no longer in law enforcement, I'm on the side where I want to know. So I understand, both sides of it, but they definitely are out for blood, and they want to be the first ones to give, any kind of information out. I also worked for the Tony Keller case, which was a case where a girl was raped and murdered and chopped up and burnt right next to the school's campus. And that again was another case where the media was just relentless. So like I said, I've seen it with my own 2 eyes, and that's what made me really interested in researching, the relationship that media and law enforcement have together, and how to kind of fix this disconnect and this love-hate relationship that we have. So hopefully my paper is just as decent as my video.